Please join me in welcoming Temple Grandin.
Well, it's really great to be here today. Got a lot of things that I want to talk about. And when I was a little kid, I had all of the full-blown symptoms of autism. And fortunately, I got into really good early intervention. You know, I have parents come to me and say, well, what do I do about autism? Well, if you have a 2 or 3-year-old child that's not talking, the worst thing that you can do is to do nothing. You gotta start working with the kid, teaching them turn taking. That was taught to me when I was a young child. And the thing is, you know, kids are getting a lot of labels. And they have just recently updated the DSM, that's the big catalog that the psychiatrists have for all the different labels of things like dyslexia, ADHD, autism. Some kids get stuck with the label like conduct disorder. I have problems with that being a medical diagnosis. And the thing about the whole DSM, it's sort of an odd combination of science and then diagnosis categories made by committees of doctors, with the insurance companies throwing a few fits in there, and the drug companies like to expand some of the categories. You know, like ADHD has been expanded. Autism's actually been shrunk a little bit. Then in '94, they added Asperger's syndrome. Now you could get into the autism spectrum with no speech delay. And these are the kids that are just the socially awkward kids. In fact, in the new DSM, they've taken Asperger out because they're trying to narrow the definition. See, I think this has to do with providing services here. This is politics here, interacting with science. And take the Asperger's out and call it social communication disorder. But they're still the same kids. You know, you gotta get to where you look at the kid and not at the label. You know, I think some of this, people who think verbally tend to oversimplify. You know, I say to teachers, well, let's look at the kid. You see, since I think visually, I travel around and I'm going, oh, I can think of all kinds of undiagnosed Asperger kids. They're gray hair now like me, and they're running the maintenance department at a meat plant. They do contracts at a car dealership. They've gotten into good jobs. Now, genetics plays a big role, but the thing is, genetics isn't simple. Take little tiny code variations, and you get lots of little tiny code variations. Because if you take 2 computer programmers in Silicon Valley, and they have kids, you're more likely to have a kid with a severe problems. It's sort of like loading the dice on both sides. Okay, I like to look at personality traits, traits like autism, traits like dyslexia, ADHD, all these kind of traits, sort of like, you know, the music mixing board. You know, you can adjust it. You can make the more anxiety or less anxiety, a little more depression or less, or maybe a brain can be made more thinking, or a brain can be made more cognitive. And we need to have people in the world doing more thinking, because who do you think made the first stone spear? It wasn't the social yak-yaks around the campfire. So I think there's a continuum here. Do we make a brain more for thinking, or a brain make more for social? Now, at what point does that become an abnormality? Well, you see, it's like the music mixing board. It's a continuum. It's not like having hepatitis, you know, where you either have it or you don't. Now, I've been designing livestock facilities for a long, long time. This is one of my curved livestock facilities. And you might wonder why curved. Cattle like to go back to where they come from. So you design it to take advantage of their natural behavior to go back to where they come from. Half the cattle in the US are handled in equipment I've designed for large meat packing plants. In fact, if you want to see that equipment, you can go on the internet and type in beef plant video tour with Temple Grandin, and you can see how these things work. And I think that's doing pretty good for a kid that they thought was mentally retarded, because that's what was thought when I was, you know, just a young kid. And while I'm on the subject of libraries, one of the things I'm finding is I talk to many, many different parents. You get a lot of really low-income people in this country. Libraries are the only places they can get books, and the only places they can get internet access. You know, there's a lot of people that can't afford a $15 paperback book. They've got to wait for it to come into the library. And so I'm really concerned about all the library hours and things being cut back. Recently, I was out in Los Angeles, and I gave a talk at the library, and they were telling me how some of these students that were homeless couldn't get to the library when it was open, and they put their computers up against the window to get the Wi-Fi signal so they could get their homework done. You know, these were students that really wanted to get ahead. Let's develop the area of strength. My ability in art was always encouraged, and I was encouraged to do lots and lots of different things in art. We got to build on strengths, especially with the kids that are different. We pound away on the deficits. And I've heard sad situations where they'll go, oh, we're going to take the kid out of band so he can do an extra math class. No. Band's the only reason that he wants to go to school.